Hey there, this is Matt with State of Flux here with a review for The Dark Knight Rises, continuing my look onto the entire works of the DC universe of films. We are on Christopher Nolan's epic conclusion to his Dark Knight trilogy. And I gotta say, my favorite part of The Dark Knight Rises was spending 45 minutes watching Bruce Wayne learn how to walk. Twice. I don't know what happened here, folks. I mean, I get that it's really hard to follow up The Dark Knight, but this movie is uneven to say the least, and I think it's also aged like milk. We'll get into that a little bit, but I do want to talk about the cultural touchstone this finale had. Going into 2012, we were viewing this as being the ultimate film of the superhero universes possible. The momentum coming out of The Dark Knight and that had been rising with the rising MCU all led to this film being a genuine masterpiece. And Christopher Nolan, in between Dark Knights, made Inception, which was nominated for a multitude of awards, including Best Picture. So all the momentum was going in this movie's favor. And sometimes when that happens, things just fail to rise, so to speak, to the occasion. And this is one of those examples of a story that just didn't seem to be right. It's also in direct conflict with the film before it. The ending of The Dark Knight presupposes that when left to their own devices, shown to us literally where the characters are holding devices, when left to their own devices, the people of Gotham, both the good guys and the bad guys, are inherently going to do what is right and not be self-serving. And there is a hero in everybody inspired by the Batman, right? That's the moral message, the moral takeaway you get from The Dark Knight and all of Joker's plans falling apart in its conclusion. And here, it backpedals that to an insane degree where this one presupposes that if you leave Gothamites to their own devices, they will burn this city to the ground and destroy everything. And that's nuts. The part that ages like milk is how kind of conservatively leaning this film is in the present climate. Now, this was also present back when it came out in 2012. The Occupy Wall Street movement had just kind of happened, and you have a villain in Bane who is literally acting as a figurehead of an Occupy Wall Street-like maneuver where the Batman first arrives and whatnot. It wasn't a good look then. It's certainly not a good look now. When the movie is telling you that, sure, all the billionaires that are in Gotham are all corrupt. They're awful people. But the idea of sharing the wealth, even remotely leaning into socialist issues or socialized wealth spreading, would lead to the deterioration of an entire city and nation along with it, right? The ripple effects are there. Yet we are living in a world where there are billionaires who are hoarding wealth to an insane degree. The people on the bottom are hungry and desperate, and yet they are banding together to appropriately respond to the billionaires in control of everything. Here, that is not what this film is showing. And it almost is a condemnation of socialized wealth sharing. And it's so strange, because that would make sense maybe if there weren't multiple countries that function like this, even as close as the Great North. But you're looking at all of Norway and Sweden and stuff like that live on a socialized economy and socialized healthcare and the benefits of the people. They're not tearing each other down. They're not destroying the nations from within. It's not this seed of corruption, which this film ultimately lands on being okay with, because you have Bruce Wayne, who is actively working outside of the law as a billionaire who comes in and saves the day from your figurehead in Bane, and it's not good. Structurally speaking, though, pardon me. Structurally speaking, though, this film also suffers because this was where it became so incredibly apparent to me that Christopher Nolan only knows how to make one movie. And that movie is The Prestige. I think I talked about this in one of my previous Batman reviews. We're going to have to cut that out. It became readily apparent to me that Christopher Nolan only knows how to make one movie, and that's The Prestige. And I think I talked about this in one of my previous Batman videos, but specifically here, seeing yet another showy villain, like the Scarecrow, like the Joker, like Bane, suddenly be pushed aside and is actually the trick side villain is the one that's close to Bruce Wayne this whole time, with Talia al Ghul, just was so apparent that he doesn't know how to not lean on that formula. And it lasted beyond The Dark Knight Rises. He did this again in Interstellar, which, if memory serves, was his follow-up to this. And it's lazy. It's lazy writing. I mean, it seems clever at first, and to be fair, it was kind of clever with Batman Begins, or hell, even The Prestige. But the, like, this is your bad guy, psych, this is your bad guy thing is done. It's old hat. The Prestige is gone. And I think that's also in part like why this film is not recognized in its quality along its two other halves. But at the time of its release, people were really, really high on it. And I think that's kind of insane looking back on it, because having just watched The Avengers for my lead into Doomsday retrospective, The Avengers holds up, probably better even so now than it did then. This aged like milk. It's actively saying something that we are seeing the antithesis of in our day-to-day world. The people that are trying to get the billionaires to spread the wealth, to get that money flowing to the bottom, most people, are not the bad guys that this film supposes they are. And I know that's also part of the, like, this is the distraction, they're really bad because of this. It kind of all goes into that same flow, because even in the Batman Begins, they talked about how they tried to destroy Gotham with economics, and that didn't work, because of good people like Bruce Wayne's parents. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the weeds of this film. The fact that people were comparing the Avengers and The Dark Knight Rises in the same league at all is insane to me, because I think not only is The Avengers more artfully made, more crowd-pleasing, more of an enjoyable experience at relatively similar runtimes. I think there's only 19 minutes of screen time difference between them. That movie speeds through. It feels swift and frenetic and fantastic and enjoyable, and you come out of that movie wanting more. And this movie is a slog until it's kind of not. And it's just kind of crazy to me. Another thing that's kind of crazy to me is Wally Pfister, the DP of The Dark Knight Rises, criticized The Avengers and how it looked and how it was such a boring looking movie. And I do think that, yes, moving forward through the MCU, a lot of those movies do have a samey quality that is not particularly interesting. But The Avengers actually has really interesting camera work. There's the scene where, like, the camera is flowing up and over the people as their world is about to be turned upside down when the stone inside the Loki's pokey stick is taking effect on everybody. There's the multiple camera angles that are really unique when you get to see, like, Nick Fury walk into this giant, warehouse kind of space, and you see the height and the depth of it in such a low angle, looking up at this heroic figure. And it sort of shows you how big this place is that's about to blow up, and you don't know that, but once you do, as an audience, realize what's about to happen, you feel the weight of that building coming down around the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You have like the cool shot of the camera in the car that flips when Loki's blowing up New York City. The whole tracking movement of all the Avengers as they're fighting. These are great shots. Wally Pfister to say that that movie is an ugly movie is kind of crazy to me, because this is the worst looking of the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. But it's also makes like a lot of weird mistakes. The moody lighting of the first two movies is largely gone, and we have a Batman with no mystique, so much so that he's shown in full light of day throughout the entire climax of the film, which is pretty uninspired. The camera work in the action scenes is really lazy. Yes, the camera's pulled back and you're seeing everything, and it's not as choppy as Batman Begins was, which was my biggest criticism for that. But here, you're seeing two guys that are like slugging each other that have no real weight to it. It doesn't feel dynamic. It's just a kind of a boring looking movie, and the fact that when it hits its emotional conclusion and Batman is sacrificing himself, it is framed like this. And that is a really fugly frame, if you ask me. Part of what makes that cowl interesting is the ears, right? You'd want to get all of that. But not this movie. So I think that's really weird that he criticizes that. Along with that, I do think it's kind of telling that maybe he was not right in saying what he was saying, because I don't think Christopher Nolan worked with him ever again. I don't know if they had a falling out or what, but that was not a good form for me. That being said, I do want to talk about the positives of this film, because it does have some pretty significant positives. I will say that whenever the movie is trying to be inspiring, it works, and it works on all cylinders. The scenes of Bruce Wayne trying to get out of the pit are pretty effective. And the score that surrounds that is good. I do think this is the weakest of the Dark Knight trilogy's scores, and the loss of James Newton Howard as a co-scorer of the co-composer is felt. Hans Zimmer just kind of has a samey quality, and he doesn't necessarily use the Dark Knight theme quite right, or the Batman theme quite right in this, nor does he really hit home that Bruce Wayne theme in certain scenes that I think it would have really worked well. But that being said, the new themes that he does bring into this, the ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, which sounds oddly similar to the Halloween theme, is pretty fantastic, as well as I really love the slinky score of Catwoman. Speaking of, Catwoman is pretty fantastic in this. Anne Hathaway is great as Catwoman, and I really enjoyed her character. You don't really feel the villainy of her, which is, I get why they did that. I would have liked more of that, but she is good in it. I also want to highlight, not David Gordon Green, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the other three-named fella. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the absolute highlight of this film. He is fantastic in this movie, so good even that it's forgivable that he figures out Batman on his own, which is something nobody should be able to do. Because if he can do it, then anybody can do it. But I really, really, really liked his performance, his character, the subtle, or not so subtle, nod to Robin, and the final image of him rising. I also like the whole notion of Batman can be anybody, he's the next Batman. And I like that Bruce Wayne sacrifices himself here at the end of it all. Bruce Wayne and Batman. That was amazing. That being said, I wish they would have committed to it. I like the ending, and like, yeah, that's sweet, but there's a lot of questions involved with that. Like, is Michael Caine sitting there, like, how did they know just the questions, the hows, the whys of it all are just insane. And it's strange, like, I guess I'm willing to forgive that one because it's an emotional payoff, but the one I'm not willing to forgive is how did Batman get back to the city after they've established firmly that you can't walk across the water and all the bridges are gone. Whatever, I'm over it. I'm not over it. God. Anyway, Good things, good things. I think Christian Bale's at his best in this film. He is really, really good, and you get the kind of burnt-out hero of him, the man that needs to inspire, the goodness of Bruce and how he's evolved. Michael Caine gives the performance of his career. I was kind of surprised he wasn't nominated for this one because he is so good. Tom Hardy, I know a lot of people love him. He's never really been my thing, but I guess he's serviceable as Bane. I like what they did with Bane. I would have liked a little closer adaptation to his comic counterpart, because I think you can do that character realistically, kind of like this movie does. A little closer to the storyline, but him being like this cerebral villain who then ultimately isn't really cerebral, and he's like at the beck and call of yet another random woman who kind of comes in to like be the villain, not unlike his usage in Batman and Robin with Poison Ivy. But the first chunk of the movie where he's this big cerebral threat as well as a physical one was great, and he has like a physical presence that's more like a kind of cage fighter rather than like a bodybuilder, and that was kind of unique and interesting. Yeah, there's good in this movie, and when it is good, it's so good, but when it's bad, it's so frustrating to the point where I don't know if I will ever actually watch this movie again. I was really frustrated with the politics of it. And I know that like people are like, I don't want politics in my review or my Batman or whatever. But this film asks you to examine its politics. And its politics have aged terribly in the, 13 years since it's come out? At a time when it was also politically relevant to examine the same politics the film is asking. It hasn't aged well since day one, and it was a misguided condemnation of a movement at the time that just happened to happen at the same time. It wasn't like the Occupy Wall Street happened and they wrote this film to reflect it. Occupy Wall Street happened in tandem with this film's release almost by accident. It's weird. So for the people that are like, I don't want my politics, the movie is actively political. It's for you to engage with it, but it's not well thought out politics. It's almost as if Christopher Nolan is trying to keep such an even tone that he's like, I don't want to piss off the right or the left, so I'm going to take a pretty centrist take on this. But in doing so, he doesn't understand the one side of it in what it's actually trying to do or say, and throws in a line from like Catwoman's side chick who played by Juno Temple, who's like, this is for the people, this is all of us, this is all of our place now. And have Catwoman being like, maybe this isn't the right way to do things. And it's like, that isn't what the idea of sharing wealth doesn't mean that everybody's got the exact same thing and you're not working for nothing. It's just sharing what you have so that nobody's life is bad, and that everybody is capable of having a prosperous life. And it's nuts, right? I don't know. You can come at me if you don't agree with that, but I would like to like engage in that conversation, because I think this film asks people to, but then is like kind of dumb when you actually put thought into it. Anyway, Dark Knight Rises, I guess, is way better than the movies in the DC lineup that I have been watching. Your Green Lanterns, your Jonah Hex, your Reds and things like that. Yeah, this is better than those. But I was pretty let down by this upon rewatch, and this is kind of the capstone of an era. This was the end of when Christopher Nolan kind of came in and made vibrant Batman again, and what we're going to be getting moving forward is the Snyder of it all. And I already know I have big feelings that are going to not coincide with a lot of the loudest parts of the internet's point of view moving forward, but I do think they're worthy topics of conversation, and it's time to examine Man of Steel when next we meet for a DC review. You'll have Man of Steel coming for you. I give Batman Begins Again or The Dark Knight Rises, same title, right? I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars. It's okay. There's greatness to be had. It even made me emotional with like his little scene with saying goodbye to Commissioner Gordon. But on the whole, it just is so uneven. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.